Alrighty, guys. So let's talk about Jason Blake's contract, Hello Kitty, and then let's also talk about the draft and the upcoming draft picks for the Carolina Hurricanes. So with that Jackson Blake contract, right? 8 years, 5.14 on the AAV. I think that's a solid contract. More or less, it's hard, right? Because it could definitely go either way, right? If he comes out and he's producing 50 to 60 points a season, good deal. We're happy. No one's complaining, right? But if he shits the bed and is a 35 point a season player, then we're gonna have some issues, right? So I guess it sort of kind of depends on next season and sort of kind of get a little bit bigger, like sample size of what he's actually gonna be able to do. We also could sort of kind of see how hard he hit the gym and how serious he's actually gonna take this part of it, right? Because last thing the Carolina Hurricanes need right now is another Kotkaniemi deal where we're locked in long term, right? Because at this point in time, it'd be 9 years with Jackson Blake, excuse me. So like, that's a long ass time, especially if he doesn't end up producing. So the question becomes, will he produce? And are we actually going to get the caliber of player that we all think we're getting, right? Because look, let's be honest here, right? There were seasons. Let's use Wayne Gretzky for example, right? There were seasons where Wayne Gretzky's line mates, and they weren't always Yuri, right? And there weren't always Messier, right? Those players that were next to him were putting up 70, 80 points. And when they got demoted to the second or third line, now they're only producing 25 or 30, right? So the question becomes, not that Aho and Gretzky are comparables, but the question becomes, right, if he moves down the lineup, is he still able to produce? And that's a big question right now for me. I don't necessarily know if he will. There are two different types of forwards, right? And you'll find, especially if you're attentive to the games, I tend to be pretty attentive, is like you find players who can create on their own, and you find players who need to rely on others to be able to create. Martinook, perfect example of it, someone who can sort of kind of take nothing and turn it into something, right? Natchez is probably a perfect example as well. You got to just have these caliber of players that can turn a 3-on-2 that looks sloppy into a golden chance with a hard-working play or quick move. Marty Natchez is, like I said, a perfect example of it. On the other side, someone is a perfect example of it, of not being able to do that, Teravainen, right? Those of you who've been around a little bit longer, stop and think about when he wasn't playing with Aho, and maybe when he was being put with other players, and he wasn't producing at that same level we got accustomed to. And now look what he's doing up there in Chicago. Not nearly as efficient, even though he's got one of the best young players in the world, right? With Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard, there you go. So, but that's just my thoughts on the Jackson Blake extension. So also, don't mind the crazy messy ass hair. Draft capital, right? It's something that I think the Hurricanes have done well in managing over the last, I'd say 6 or so years. And then in this upcoming draft, right, the Hurricanes have 1 first-round pick and 2 sixths, and like that's it. So with that, I'm okay with it, right? I think there comes a spurt, a time in each organization's period where you're not trying to build for the future, you're trying to win, and I think that's really where the Hurricanes are at this point in time. Now, the following year, our draft is sort of kind of normal. Looks like we've got like maybe 2 or 3 third-round picks in the 27 draft, but the 28 draft, if I'm not mistaken, and I could completely be wrong on the years. I didn't see that we had 2 firsts, I think 1 second, maybe 3 thirds. So, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but that amount of draft capital is perfect. This is where Eric Toulouse is like, he's smart. This is a very, very well thought out plan, right? So that second first round pick that we're getting, I believe, I have to double check to see who it's from, right? But you don't want to like always ask for, if you're getting a first rounder back, you don't want it in that same year. You don't, I want, we're trading you, I don't know, we're trading you Scott Morrow, and then, this isn't the trade, right? We're trading you Scott Morrow, and we will immediately want a first-round pick back. Well, if Scott Morrow was going to go to the New York Rangers, right, and be a difference maker to that extent, the way New York is thinking he's going to be, you're going to get like a, what, 26, 27, 28th overall pick? That's what they're hoping for. That's not what we're hoping for. So in a perfect world, you could push it out a couple of years, right? Now, Scott Moore is going to get better, so maybe he's not the greatest example. Let's say, for example, Hall is a perfect example, right? Say, for example, the Hurricanes traded for him 3 years ago, and now we're having to give up our first round pick. Well, in those couple of years, you're hoping that Hall is now, his plays now sort of kind of gone down, and you're hoping that, like, what you're really looking at is getting a top 15-ish pick from him. So you don't always want to trade away picks and immediately get a first rounder coming back at, that year, even the following year. So having that wait a couple of years out is a great strategy and really plays into the brilliance of this current general manager and the people that he's put around him. But anyway, guys, I appreciate the watch, the listen, the follow, the like. Correct me, and I can't remember if you guys want to correct me on what year all those picks are coming in at. But follow for more fun hockey stuff.